Thank you so much, Anya. Thank you all for joining. And Fabiana, thank you also for joining online. You're missing out on this amazing venue, but next year we expect you in person. So this is the first session of today, and I would say one of the very future ready sessions. Because this forum is very much about policy, but also very much about figuring out what policy will look like in the next 5-10 years, which is also a big part of our work at the European Ethereum Institute, because it's not about only what is currently going on, it's also about what will be important for Ethereum and public permissionless blockchains in a few years. So without further delay, I'll introduce myself really quickly, and then I'll give the floor to my lovely speakers to also introduce themselves, and we'll get into action. At the end of the panel, we will also have a few minutes for a discussion if there are any questions from the audience. If not, I have plenty of questions for you. So there would be a discussion, that's for sure. So a bit about myself, as Anya already said, I'm Viara Savova. I'm the Senior Policy Lead with the European Ethereum Institute, previously the European Crypto Initiative. We have been very active in the policy space in the EU, and since this March 2026, also the UK, following everything that matters to public permissionless blockchain. So quite a lot of financial regulations, but also everything that is related to infrastructure level. And so quantum is one of my personal top three. The other ones being open source and privacy, of course. If you have ever met me, it was probably also we had a conversation about privacy. So Fabiana, maybe you can start with an introduction of what you do, who you are, why we are here, what really interests you as well, also when it comes to public permissionless blockchains. And then, yeah, we can have this as a very nice discussion.
Yes, thank you very much, Viara, and thank you very much to the European Ethereum Institute for the invitation. I'm really sorry that I cannot be there with you today, but we have 3 events simultaneously today. And it's really a mess. One with small and medium enterprises, one with the European Central Bank. So it's complicated, but I really do hope next year to be there with you. So thank you very much. And thank you very much to my co-panelists. So I am team lead here at the European Commission, DG Connect, for the post-quantum migration. Essentially what we do, we are in the technology department. So what we do is that we monitor closely advances in quantum computing, both where quantum error correction, algorithmic optimization. We design initiatives to try and coordinate the efforts and members of the transition to post-quantum cryptography. We do policy injection, so we write policy text to be considered in the different legislative proposals. We try to handle problems to other units and other generals in Connect in the European Commission when we see that there is not a coherent consideration of the fact that there is a huge global transition ongoing. And this is sometimes overlooked. Several initiatives, like, for example, some compliances related to decentralization, which are also overlooked. And actually, we take the ecosystem of design in different work programs in order to provide funds to researchers in order to design new schemes, with a particular focus on privacy-enhancing cryptographic schemes. So this is what we do, essentially.
Thank you so much. And yes, Nicolas, go on.
Thanks for having me. I'm Nico. I lead different projects at the Ethereum Foundation, including the Kohaku project, which is a wallet initiative focused on privacy and security. And yeah, I'm also a post-quantum cryptography enthusiast. I just published 2 days ago a a variation of a post-quantum signature scheme that is very likely to be used on Ethereum in the next few years. And yeah, my first professional experience was an intern in a research lab that was selling crypto analysis service and post-quantum migration 10 years ago. So it's kind of a full circle moment for me to be here. And yeah, really happy that we're actually doing this now, because for a while I was doing this very complicated stuff and it was uncertain to ever happen. So it was a bit of a weird journey, I guess, for a lot of people in cryptography and in computer science in general, to work on something that might never happen. So yeah, now it seems like it's happening, so I'm very excited.
Thank you so much. And I will directly follow up on what you just said. It's happening, but it's not quite here. But in any case, what can we do to prepare ourselves? And I mean, as users, also as policymakers, and here, Fabiana, I'll also give you, after that, the floor. But what can already be done?
So yeah, as you said, it's not there yet, but it's very important. When you have a critical system, you need to manage the risk, and you cannot ignore this risk. So even if it's 1%, let's say even if it's 1% chance that there is a Q-Day happening in the next 10 years, you have to act on it. If you have a critical infrastructure, you cannot allow yourself to have 1% chance to disappear. Imagine if you're operating a nuclear plant, you cannot allow yourself to have like a 1% failure. And for Ethereum, for blockchain, it's the same. 1% is way, way too high. So you have to act. And in Ethereum, how it looks like, we have two main areas of migration. So we have what we call the consensus layer and the execution layer. So the consensus is how validators and the network is agreeing on the state of the chain, and the execution is more how you and I manage our accounts and interact with smart contracts and stuff. And we are making great progress in those areas. And the scheme I published the other day allows your account on the execution layer to use a post-quantum signature today. So you can actually start migrating your account as of right now. So yeah, we're making great progress on this, and we have an amazing research team that is doing the consensus side of things. So yeah, I expect Ethereum to be pretty prepared for this.
Do you have a timeline already in mind for when this is going to happen?
So the consensus change is expected in the next 2 years. And on the execution side, yeah, as I said, we are kind of already prepared.
There. Amazing. Okay, Fabiana, what's going on from the more policy side, and what are the policy timelines the EU already is working with?
Yes, thank you very much, Fabiana, for the question. But first, I would like to say something about what Nicolas just said, that, well, it's not only 1% possibility that there will be a quantum computer in the next 10 years. It is true that recently there have been many remarkable advances that still rely on assumptions that are very strong, like 99.9% fidelities for the coherence of the qubit, and some hardware scaling assumptions that still constitute actually a quite big engineering gap. However, one also must integrate into this the fact that probably the first fault-tolerant quantum computer will not be publicly declared. So it is actually not easy to state what are the chances that this large-scale quantum computer will actually materialize, because there is a space of unknowns that will remain unknown. So, however, it is true that there are several different converging directions, especially from algorithmic optimization, and the results coming from different quantum hardware platforms that increase the chances that indeed there will be some considerable progress in the field. Let's say that at least with the dramatic decrease of resources for indeed breaking RSA 2048, there is a worry that is also reflected, for example, in the report by the Global Quantum Risk Institute, which is developed by Evolution Q, that it is clearly the evolution of the ideas of the experts on this risk, and they show that the percentage of the number of experts that think that this will materialize in the next years is increasing, so up between 20 and 30%. So the risk is there, but it doesn't even reflect. Why this? Because it is so complicated, this transition, that anyway, if we think about all the cryptographic tasks, which are not only encryption and bare signatures, it will actually take decades. So we really should start now. So for the first cryptographic tasks, work is ongoing, but there is so much to know about advanced cryptographic schemes. Many of these fancy cryptography has not been converted yet to their post-quantum version. So there is much work to do. But about your question, sorry, Viara, about your question. So there are many things to be done at the governmental level and for financial institutes and large organizations in general. Of course, the role of the Commission is more to coordinate the work between member states. However, it's not only coordination of the work between member states, but incredibly, it is also much effort is also done to coordinate among ourselves, because different directorates, they have different initiatives, and we clearly see that sometimes there is no complete alignment in these initiatives, and that there may be some assessment on how the different initiatives are actually intertwined from the perspective of this is not always so well considered. Of course, we have a strong regulation, which is DORA, that is the only regulation that actually mentions explicitly the quantum threat. And it also mentions crypto agility, like the Cyber Resilience Act. So financial institutions have to follow this regulation and have to act by mapping dependencies and starting conversations with their third-party vendors and set up a strategy for crypto agilities. However, there is a big problem in Europe that the European Union does not control the digital infrastructures that we regulate. So the financial supervisory bodies have published recently a report the amount of ICT service providers that are beyond EU reach, let's say, and those that are instead under EU jurisdiction, and actually the percentage is strongly disbalanced. So there is a problem in this, of course, and why there are many efforts to, let's say, to pursue some autonomy. We have to accept that this will always be a sort of hybrid autonomy and hybrid sovereignty. So what is important for financial institutions and yes, also for other ecosystems to consider really independence and what you cannot accept because of a critical dependency. We have seen, for example, now with AI that some initiatives overnight, they stop collaborations, they stop export of software and things like that. So we have to consider that indeed the conditions are sometimes such that we have to do a risk assessment, not only in front of the quantum threat, but also on the very digital infrastructures that allows the financial system to run. So this is really a structural problem important today.
Thank you so much for this. Nico, do you want to comment on particularly on the kind of the response to your initial point?
Yeah. So what I meant was not there is 1% chance of this happening. It's probably way, way higher. But even if it was 1% chance, you cannot ignore it if you're operating critical infrastructure. I think it's a very hard task to give either a timeline or a percentage. I think we should have prediction markets for this. Maybe there is. But yeah, the theory in post-quantum cryptography existed actually decades ago. So the first post-quantum signature schemes were done in the 80s, something like this, with the pointernet signatures. And so yeah, the theory has been there for quite a long time. So we had a lot of time to prepare. And when you need to migrate a huge infrastructure, usually what's very complicated is to do this crypto inventory task that you are probably doing at the EC. So trying to find all the places where you are using old cryptography that will rely on the decrypt algorithm. And so when you have a huge system, finding all the places where you have this cryptography in place is super, super hard. It is hard when you have something like a blockchain, and I can only imagine how it looks at the European Commission level.
Perhaps we can explore that together, Fabiana, and especially what you mentioned about this, I would say, decentralized aspects of the technological spread around the world, and how the EU and even the best of EU's regulations cannot necessarily even help predict what's going to be built in other countries. So are you thinking about the solutions to that, or do you have to wait for the Quantum Act to be out in the autumn to see that? But have you thought about that? Like what can be done? Can anything be done? It might also be no, sorry, nothing can be done sort of answer, but just out of curiosity.
Well, I prefer to be realistic. I think that some, let's say, dreams about complete autonomy, they will probably continue to be utopistic dreams. However, there is much movement now also from different ministries of the digital transformation in order to, let's say, stop contracts with the foreign providers and start favoring national initiatives, for example, for cloud services and other applications. So there is clearly movement and clearly let's say, more consciousness and awareness of this. And now recently the European Commission has adopted the EU Tech Sovereignty Package that aims at gaining, let's say, more autonomy and sovereignty, starting from the very first layer of the digital stack, which is actually semiconductors and chips. So we really start from the basis. It's a huge initiative, but I do think that even in a world in which we cannot, according to my opinion, but I hope to be wrong, we cannot think completely autonomous in terms of the infrastructure and in terms of the very hardware that runs the infrastructure. I think there is much to do that you can do to control the flow of data and to control the privacy of EU citizens. The EU has an enormous and excellent expertise in research on cryptographic schemes that can really protect the fundamental rights of citizens and can also protect actually the sovereignty of certain applications. So imagine, for example, AI today, there is much interest, everything is around AI. Now, for example, the very hardware that can run large AI models and can maybe even allow computing on encrypted data, so homomorphic encryption, is not something that Europe has available from today, let's say, in one day. There are researchers that are working on developing this hardware, but of course it's really a big project, a big objective. However, in the meantime, we really need to think how to prevent data leakage or exfiltration of data during the AI computing inference phase. So we really need to put some cryptographic schemes and cryptographic enforcement to the access to these models that really ensure that at least from that point of view, we can control everything. And the same, of course, for other applications that will also be, let's say, integrated in decentralized infrastructures. So for this, of course, it's also an opportunity for Europe to develop open source solutions that are highly scrutinized by cryptographers. And we really think that this could be a strength, let's say, to properly integrate, for example, ADAS2 into public blockchain and to scrutinize in a transparent and open source manner the schemes that will allow successful integration. Well, this opinion is the opinion of my department that we try to push across different departments, and I hope that this will be taken into consideration.
Thank you for sharing this. Very, very interesting. And I'll actually go back to Nico by taking some of the things that you said, because the European Union, as you also mentioned, as we all know, is about protecting the citizens. It's about also protecting fundamental human rights, privacy, and so forth. We have the GDPR, we have many other frameworks, and now we also have this work done towards quantum. But the work done towards quantum and post-quantum security is building on top of all these other values and other frameworks that have already been established. And in a sense, it's the same with Ethereum, because we have all these values that are part of the EF, like part of the Ethereum as an ecosystem. And for example, now we have the new mandate, we have crops, we have all these things that are very much also the building blocks of all the other strategies that are being implemented by and integrated into Ethereum. So how do these align? Like how do, for example, privacy, open source, and all these other work streams also align with the quantum? And how, can you walk us through all kind of the different activities and how they all make sense in this context together?
So a lot of the privacy solutions that are based on regular cryptography are susceptible to be harvested and then decrypted later. So a lot of the existing privacy solutions, encrypted messaging stuff that you can use, if they don't use the right post-quantum technology, then even though they are not weak today and they're not breakable today, they will be breakable in the future. So all of this comes together when, you prepare for this transition. You need to understand that a lot of the communication channels that are private today might not be private tomorrow. So you might have someone that is actually listening now and just storing all the encrypted data and will later decrypt when a post-quantum computer would be available. So you have all these technical challenges, and obviously we want to preserve the privacy and the values that are behind Ethereum. So the props work is very, I would say, relevant in that post-quantum transition. If you want to be sovereign in Europe, you need to have the resources to do so. Actually, I would love to ask a question to you about which hardware company or which project the European Commission sees as a champion in this direction. I know some French companies like Alice and Bob are doing an amazing job in this direction. And I wonder if the European Commission is actually looking at some of these projects and seeing maybe the potential champions that are going to build this infrastructure or hardware. Or yeah, I wonder if you guys are looking into some specific companies as future champions for this.
Only if you feel comfortable answering, no pressure.
No, sorry, I just had to switch on the microphone again because I received many notifications. I don't want to have a bell every 2 seconds. I should switch off my notification one day. Yes, sure. So there is a parallel unit, parallel to my unit, that indeed follows closely different companies in the quantum ecosystem that are making advances, of course. Alice and Bob is surely one of the principal companies that we follow, but there are several others that we follow, and that they are not only in Europe. Now, we found them mostly through the Horizon Europe program that until now has been very open. So there are also collaborations with other countries that are outside Europe and that yes, bring different assets that Europe does not have. But our biggest strategies focused on Europe, and it is really related to the European Quantum Strategy that was published already last year, and now we are working on the European Quantum Act. Of course, the European Quantum Act will try to boost enormous European companies because there is a big weakness in Europe that is the lack of capacity of translating excellent research to industrialization. So we need to scale up with this capability. Absolutely, we need to improve this and not leave all the excellent results to research. My unit mostly deals with post-quantum cryptography. So with post-quantum cryptography, we follow an enormous amount of actors in academia and in companies and small, medium entities, but also entities that are outside Europe. And we have already designed several initiatives in order to boost, in particular, privacy-enhancing cryptographic tools. Some of them are already post-quantum by nature, for example, full homomorphic encryption, likely. But some others, many others, they need to be converted to post-quantum. And so we have designed several initiatives for funding these research activities, and we will continue to do so. I don't know if Europe will decide to take a more active role, for example, in standardization or if we will continue to contribute to the NIST standardization. I think it will be the second in order not to duplicate efforts. In any case, Europe builds on excellent expertise in post-quantum cryptography, and from the perspective of my unit, privacy is really a top priority with the security force. So we try to push in several initiatives, for example, the wallet, for example, Web3. Several AI, for example, AI adoption with protection against data leakage, exfiltration of data, and yes, how the services, of course. So this we do.
Okay, yeah. And there were already mentioned some technical ways of dealing with the quantum threat. Is that too dramatic? Probably. But and I'm curious, like, what have you already thought about, and what are you implementing? Like, I have heard discussions about account abstraction as being one of the possible solutions. So maybe walk us through some of the more technical sides of what you're doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are actually using mostly NIST schemes that have been standardized a few years ago. And we are using mostly hash-based signatures, so signatures that are based on one-way hashing functions. So as I was saying earlier, at the execution layer, which is the layer at which you, as a user, interact with your account, the solution that we have is to use what we call account abstraction or smart wallets. Basically, it's just a smart contract that has any arbitrary logic that you want and that operates as your wallet. So when you have a smart wallet, the nice thing in Ethereum is that you can write any logic that you want, so you can write any signature scheme that you want. So we were able to use NIST recommendations, or we were able to experiment with all types of post-quantum cryptography schemes. And recently we found a bunch of signature schemes that have been standardized by NIST and that are not too expensive to do on chain. So you can already experiment with this. And so the way you can see this is that Ethereum is going to be very agile because you will be able to swap the signature scheme of your wallet. So imagine like changing the lock of your door in your house, and you can do this pretty easily, and we can design all types of locks. So yeah, I would say it's actually a pretty nice opportunity for Ethereum to showcase the power of being a programmable chain. So this is the technical path that we are taking to solve the problem on the execution layer, is to have a lot of people migrating toward smart accounts and using these post-quantum signatures as the lock on their wallet. And we've been doing this. We've been looking at it for a few years now, and now it feels very close. I'm actually using this every day myself. So yeah, we are getting there, and we have the tools for everyone to upgrade their existing accounts toward these new smart wallets. So we have an EIP that allows you to change your regular account into a smart one. And soon we will have more EIPs allowing you to not only migrate your account, but also deactivate the old cryptography that was protecting your old account. So yeah, we are getting there, and I feel like end of 2026 we will probably have all the account abstraction building blocks ready. So yeah, quite an exciting moment.
Indeed, yes. I'm personally very excited about this whole topic. And unfortunately, we are almost done. But I know that there was one person wanting to ask a question, so maybe we can get a microphone. I don't know if there is a microphone for the person over there. And
while that, congratulate with Nicolas, because the work they are doing is really excellent.
Thank you very much.
Is it? It doesn't seem to be on.
We can hear you.
No, but it's for the.
No, you can.
Yeah.
So I just asked. I'm a little bit confused why we, as an industry, focus so much on quantum computer as a threat. When I look at the topic, it's a nation level threat, right? We can agree on that, which inherently makes it a mesh equilibrium. So Meanwhile, the sociological layer of Ethereum is completely open. Now it's working. So maybe I don't start with being since recording, right?
Yeah.
So we're so focused on the quantum computing threat. Meanwhile, this is a nation-level kind of threat, which makes it inherently a nation equilibrium and not very relevant. I mean, I wouldn't say not completely irrelevant, but it shouldn't be in the focus as much as it is on the focus. Meanwhile, we have currently compliance risk coming from the Ethereum Foundation due to having virtual involved in it. Okay, topic. The core engineers are leaving. We have all these problems. We have hacks. We have all these problems on a sociological layer. And when we look at quantum social physics, we could address the problem of that. So I'm thinking we are looking at the wrong quantum here. We're looking at quantum computing, which doesn't even get that much funding right now, and we barely get 500 qubits, and for like a couple of nanoseconds, maybe microseconds, and then they basically destroy the whole market. So we are looking at the wrong thing here. So why are we doing this? Why are we looking at something that is maybe a couple of decades away, which only affects on the nation level? At that point, it's European Union versus USA versus China, which is a stable name. What do I care?
Any comments on that, Nico?
Yeah, I think it's a critical risk management approach. So even if it was like 0.1% chance to happen, if you have $1 trillion sitting on your chance, well, 0.1% chance on $1 trillion, an asset manager will tell you you'd better act. So yeah, I think you can't just ignore the risk. And also, even if it doesn't happen, there is indeed a social game, and it only takes a headline saying we're very close to actually entirely move the market. So
just a number.
Well, yeah, we can agree to disagree, but I think also it's not something that is going to take us resources for years. As I said, we're kind of already there, so yeah, it's almost free to do, so let's do it.
Fabiana, I'm not sure if you heard the question or and if you have any comments. If not, I have this one final question for both of you. But yeah, first I just if you have any.
I didn't hear well the questions, but I agree with what Nicolas said, so I am aligned with him.
Okay, good. We have a very friendly panel. That's a good thing. So one final question is basically, what would success look like from both your perspectives? And like, what would success in 5 years look like? Maybe, yeah, just interpret this question the way that you want to answer it, basically. But let's also keep it in some framework, like around some time or something. But yeah, I'm really curious of like in your heads, why are you doing this? What would success look like? Maybe Fabiana, we can start with you.
So I don't see the audience there, but allow me to, yeah, maybe to remove for 1 second my commissioned hat. Yeah, for me, the wallets are a big challenge. And I think that we should really develop a fully EU sovereign solution that is highly scrutinized by our researchers and from which we could, let's say, achieve independence from others. But this is not the only one. Well, there is also, let's say, the concomitant success that I would like to see is that the integration of permissionless blockchain. I think this is an emerging technology that we really cannot afford ourselves to dismiss in future digital identity frameworks. So I think that, yes, for me, this would be success in 5 years if both security and privacy are put at the first step as the first priority. So yes, this would be successful for me.
Love this. Nico, how about you?
So success 5 years from now would be, we have done the zkVM transition. So we have massively scaled the throughput of the chain, and we have a fully post-quantum network where you can also operate privately. So ideally, success 5 years from now, every thing on Ethereum is post-quantum, and you can operate your accounts and interact with smart contract privately. That would be ideal.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for joining us today, and thanks for the audience also for being active. With this, I close this panel, but not this discussion. I'm really hopeful that we'll continue this discussion in many forms in the next 5 years. So thank you again.